If morality is subjective, who decides what is moral? Proponents of objective morality or moral objectivism often pose this question as a gotcha moment, but the reality is far more complex than this question implies. I can just as easily turn this question around and ask them, if two of you disagree on what is objectively moral, who decides who's right? Regardless of where you stand on the morality spectrum, there's no simple path to making your viewpoint automatically superior in a debate. You can't simply claim that God is on your side, expecting this declaration alone to end the discussion and compel your opponents to agree. Moral disagreements always involve discussion, persuasion, and negotiation. In this video, I'll argue that what's truly important isn't determining whether morality is objective or subjective. Rather, it's recognizing and understanding the subjective factors, human motivations, emotions, biases, and desires that shape moral judgment. Even if you firmly believe in universal moral truths, you can't fully grasp why people disagree about morality without understanding the psychological dynamics at play. Hello everyone, this is Shen and welcome to Mindful Living. On this channel, we use reason and mindfulness to explore religious issues. I firmly believe that mindfulness should extend to every aspect of our lives, including religion. Today, I'll explore the subjective elements involved in making moral judgments. Let me state my position clearly up front. I don't believe moral principles exist as universally applicable, unchanging entities that everyone must follow in every situation. Moral principles, as I see them, aren't objective facts like gravity or mathematics. Instead, they are closely tied to human values, and values are inherently subjective. Values depend entirely on us, the subjects, human beings. Think about it in this way. If humanity were to go extinct, concepts like rape is wrong would lose all meaning. Without humans or any sentient beings, there would be no one to hold, communicate, or enforce such moral judgments. Morality, therefore, isn't something that exists independently of human minds. However, the goal of this video isn't to convince you of moral subjectivism. Instead, I'm advocating for awareness of the subjective aspects inherent in every moral decision, even if you believe morality is objective. Understanding this subjective dimension will help you navigate moral disagreements more effectively. So, whether you believe morality is objective, subjective, or somewhere in between, stay tuned. This discussion is for everyone. One challenge with moral subjectivism is that we might place too much weight on our initial or strongest moral intuitions. This can lead us to act impulsively without careful consideration, resulting in actions we later regret. On the other hand, proponents of objective morality often overlook the subjective components influencing their moral decisions. They might subconsciously dress their subjective intuitions as objective moral truths, even when they rely on a universal moral source, such as the Christian Bible. Psychological factors significantly influence their interpretations of what's objectively moral. This explains why, even among Christians who uphold the Bible as the ultimate moral authority, there is such a wide diversity of moral views, each claiming to be correct. Despite believing in the same God, interpretations of God's will vary dramatically due to differing emotional and cultural baggage. These differences affect how they interpret biblical teachings. Consider slavery as an example. In modern society, virtually everyone, Christians or not, agree that owning another human being as property is categorically immoral. Freedom is viewed as a basic human right. When Christians are asked directly, is slavery objectively immoral? Many immediately say yes, but others hesitate, knowing it's a complicated question. The Bible explicitly legislates slavery in Leviticus 25, verses 44 to 46, allowing Israelites to enslave foreigners permanently and even pass them down as property through generations. This creates a deep internal conflict for Christians. They believe God is the source of objective morality, yet here is God seemingly endorsing slavery, which modern believers recognize as morally repugnant. When confronted with this dilemma, Christians often become creative in their interpretations. They might argue that God contextualized his teachings based on the cultural needs of the time, similar to how he allowed divorce as an accommodation rather than endorsing it as ideal. This interpretation is valuable because it acknowledges that even objective moral principles might require contextual adjustments. If moral accommodation happened in the Old Testament, why not also in the New Testament? Is it true that only people in the Old Testament period required contextualized moral guidance, but not people in the New Testament? That would be strange, right? If you argue that all of the teachings in the New Testament are free from cultural accommodation, then you have to explain why Apostle Paul encourages slaves to obey their slave owners. For example, Colossians chapter 3 verses 22 to 24 reads, "Slaves, obey your earthly masters in everything, and do it not only when their eye is on you and to curry their favor, but with sincerity of heart and reverence for the Lord. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward." You can find similar teachings in 1 Timothy chapter 6, 1 and Titus chapter 2, 9 to 10. It is true that Paul asked slave owners to treat their slaves well, but he never told them to free their slaves and admonished them that it was objectively immoral to own people as property. If we take Paul's teachings as universally applicable moral standards, should we reenact slavery today and instruct slaves to obey their masters as if serving Christ? Clearly, the answer should be no. Do you see how subjective moral intuition inevitably influences moral judgment, even among those who believe in objective moral standards? The Bible may be viewed as a manual of timeless truths, but we always negotiate with its texts to align with our moral intuitions. To deny that we engage in this negotiation would be intellectually dishonest. If you are still not convinced, ask yourself, how do we know enslaving others is objectively immoral? It's not explicitly condemned anywhere in the Bible. Many Christians argue it's because humans are made in God's image. I think that makes a lot of sense, even though I'm not a Christian. I can see that if I were to believe that humans are created in God's image, it would be outrageous or even blasphemous to enslave any individual. Yet historically, Christians have not consistently applied this logic. The Bible itself never uses the image of God argument against slavery. Can we then say God doesn't follow his own teaching when he tells the ancient Israelites to purchase slaves from foreign nations? In my opinion, our belief that slavery is wrong doesn't come exclusively from Christian teachings. Rather, it emerges from our moral intuition, which is influenced by genetics, education, culture, customs, and personal experiences. These moral convictions can feel so strong that we often assume they must be universally true or divinely inspired, even if they aren't explicitly supported by the Bible. The problem arises when we rely too heavily on this moral intuition to interpret the Bible. Devoted believers throughout history have arrived at vastly different conclusions on moral issues, each sincerely convinced their interpretation aligns with God's will. Slavery is just one example. Pick virtually any moral topic, and you'll find theologians with wildly different views, past and present. It's tempting to dismiss Christians who historically supported slavery or remained silent about it as not real Christians. The logic goes something like this. They misunderstood God's will, but I truly get it because I am genuinely seeking truth, not personal benefit. I used to think like that, but I eventually recognized and moved away from that kind of narcissism. Today, I see a healthier approach, acknowledging that we constantly negotiate what we might perceive as objective moral truths through our subjective moral lens. Accepting this reality is crucial for maintaining a robust and flexible ethical system capable of adapting to social and cultural changes. I know I am not alone in this thinking. Many progressive Christians share this perspective. They openly recognize that we all bring cultural and emotional biases to our understanding of Christian ethics. Whether we admit it or not, we are always negotiating with official doctrine. This openness allows them to bless gay marriages and champion social justice causes often opposed by conservative Christians. Before you criticize progressive Christians in the comments, consider this. Conservative Christians also negotiate their supposedly objective moral standards regularly. They are just less willing to admit it. Many conservatives find ways to justify voting for someone accused of rape and convicted of other felonies. They selectively use scripture to justify hostility towards immigrants and refugees, claiming biblical support for prioritizing their own people first. Every Christian, progressive or conservative, negotiates with the Bible, selectively interpreting scripture according to personal preferences. If this sounds confusing or challenging, that's okay. The point of this video is simply to encourage mindfulness about how we process moral and ethical information. Determining right from wrong is far more complex than merely reading scripture and directly applying it. Each person's thought process is unique, but everyone can benefit from greater introspection, reflecting on how decisions are made, understanding motivations, and questioning why certain claims resonate while others don't. That's all I'm suggesting. There's much more I could say, but this video is just the starting point. If you think I've overlooked key questions, please ask them in the comments. And if you find this topic of morality and ethics interesting, make sure to subscribe. I plan to discuss it further in future videos. Thank you for watching and see you next time.